pleased to have you here. So before we get into the conversation, just to let you know that we have a tradition on UK Black Men Talk Show. It's a check-in. So I ask you how you're feeling. You give me a number from 1 to 10 and a word that comes to mind of how you're feeling right now in this moment. So, Christopher, what's your number from 1
Right.
to 10?
My number is 8 because I don't use 7.
Right.
And the word is fine.
The word is fine. Now, Christopher, before we start, I'm going to ask you if it's okay. Why don't you use 7?
A few years ago during the lockdown, I got listening to somebody who's known as the Godfather, a man called Kevin Samuels Ashe.
Yes.
And he always used to say to his female guests, if they're rating themselves from 1 to 10, they can't use 7.
Right.
So I think that's great because like seven's such a good number really, and people do tend to overuse it, I think. So I'm using 8 because I'm definitely better than 6. Not to rate myself as a looker, but
Right.
in terms of how I'm feeling.
Yes, if I'm ready. Yes.
I'm ready.
Right, so this show is a space where we listen. When men talk, we listen. So many things are happening out here. And to start off with your new guest, I'm going to let you start wherever you want to. There's relationships, the black man and the black woman, conflict, myth or reality. So many layers there. The community, who's who, and over to you. What would you like to say? Because we are listening.
For me, and going through my life experience, I would say that although I'd experienced racism, and I will call it real racism, I'm talking about from the 60s and the 70s. What we have now, I don't really feel that it's racism that's imposed on us by anybody else other than ourselves. So we're doing this, as far as I'm concerned, we're doing this to ourselves. Yes, of course, there are external influences, but ever since historically, yeah, we've been set against each other. And so now we are now perpetuating what's happening. So the example is, for instance, between men and women, we have this rift that has caused us to basically annihilate our own families. And I would say annihilate because we start out, people get together, they procreate, and then for some reason break up. And yeah, it is with encouragement from outside, but how much of it is actually due to racism and how much of it is due to our own self-hatred?
We're listening. We're listening.
Okay, so I right now, my personal feeling is that, we are under some very powerful conditioning. Some might even call it magic, right? I would say we're under a spell. And it's interesting in this time that, we use all these words that we have transmuted the meanings of, but the original meanings are still underneath. So
Right. Mm-hmm.
even though we are trying to transmute certain words, like for instance, someone might say when something is like really, really good or they're really impressed by it, they'll say, that's sick. Yeah. But we all
Right.
know what the meaning of the word sick originally is. So
Right. Yes.
we know when it comes to certain other words, for instance, when I was young, we never used the word sick. We would use the word, that's bad. So,
Mm-hmm.
you had all these different urban slang terms, and the words' original meanings are still underneath.
Right.
And I think that well, we spell words, don't we? So words are spells, and we use certain words and perpetuate our condition. So, there's very, very important words that we use, and you know, it's unfortunate
Uh-huh.
that the talk show is called what it's called. I'm not going to say anything at the moment. You can
Yeah, we're going to
stop
talk
me if you
about
want.
that later. Absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's not unfortunate. We'll talk about that,
Right.
Christopher.
Okay. Well,
But the word,
good.
I know the
Okay.
word you're talking about, the B word. You continue.
Right. The
Yes,
B word.
yes.
Okay. Right. So in the meantime, we grew up in this. Well, we're known, right, on a level of dysfunction as a race, as a community, as a people. I think we're more known in a condition that is not conducive to us rising up as a people. And if that is the actual aim of what we're trying, we're aspiring to heights, because apparently
Hmm.
in our history we were once kings and queens, according to some, and we were this great and noble people. And so if we're aspiring to be back there,
Hmm.
we should have an understanding of how we got to be here. It's easy to say it was slavery, but I think it goes a lot deeper than that. So,
Uh-huh.
you know, there are, in my mind, solutions of how to get out of this, but it's whether we as a people are prepared to take that on. There's something I would like to ask people to do, the listeners, right? Indulge me for a second.
Go for
Document,
it.
right? It's called
Right.
SF181. S
Yes.
for sugar, F for Freddy, 181.
Yeah.
And I would ask the listeners to Google that. It's a PDF file, it comes up, it's a one-page document. Google that document and just, look at it for yourself, okay? And
Right.
see what you see. It's a document, I'll explain, that is for self-identification by race and ethnicity.
Right. Self-identification, race and ethnicity.
Yeah,
SF181.
SF181.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So, people can read it for themselves, and I'll, people don't are missing something, because, there's another saying that, if you want to hide something from our people, you put it in a book. And you
Oh.
know what? As loath as I am to admit it, there seems to be some truth to that. It's not just affecting our people, it's
Mm-hmm.
affecting everybody, because, at this moment in time, everybody on the planet, in this realm, is affected by the words that we use. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's not it's happening. I think what's happening now is happening organically.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening by itself. It's just free running now. It's taken on a life of its own, and we're running with it. Although there's still, entities out there who are capitalizing on this. So this has led us, and I might be rambling slightly, but this has led us into a situation where basically we don't like each other, and we make it easy for others to maybe dislike us,
It's
right?
powerful what you're saying there, Christopher, and you're not rambling. We're listening. We are listening here.
And I'm encouraged, by what you're saying, Annz. Thank you very much. So continuing on, I grew up one parent family, as I'm sure more than a few of us have. And statistically, I think it's placed us at a disadvantage. Now, where I think I managed to break out of it a little bit is that I refused, or maybe it was just because of my background, I refused to just accept that this was a race thing that was happening to us. And so,
Right.
therefore, I don't see myself as a victim of circumstances. Yes, I've been affected, but the tendency to want to feel sorry for myself and feel that the world is down on me doesn't exist in my mindset. And I think it's something that we as a people still have happening, and it's something that we have to break. But how are we going to break it? Do we want to break it? Do we want to break it? Because at the same time as I'm saying this, there are people who are, some of our people, especially in the Americas, right, who are
Mm-hmm.
profiting greatly, right, from maintaining this vicious cycle.
Wow.
You know, they will
Mm-hmm.
continue to talk about racial oppression and, you know, how much more difficult it is for the black man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they themselves, if you look at them, they're doing very well for themselves, you know. So this is the plight we're up against, because we're reinforcing stuff in our mind. And I want to go in a bit deeper, but I'm trying to sort of gently give people, you know, an idea of, you know, what's I think is happening. And I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I am saying, well, in the light of my experiences of having
Yes.
been, you know, through, well, my experiences in life.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Transformation Tuesday live on the one and only Supreme FM. Now, you know the interplay between music and topics, and how many times have people said they're never going to fall in love again? Right, so we're going to continue with the conversation. We're going to look at the black man, the black woman, the community. A special guest, new to Black Men Talk, new to the show, Christopher. Welcome back, Christopher, who's going to answer the special listener who sent a message. So Christopher's going to address that. Welcome back, Christopher.
Thanks, Annz.
For those people just tuning in, UK Black Men Talk Show, you're talking with Christopher. We're going to continue this powerful conversation. One of our listeners has asked Christopher for more details about the document he mentioned. So Christopher, let them know, and then you continue with what you were saying before the break regarding the impact of words. Over to you, Christopher.
Right. So the document is called SF181, Standard Form 181. It's a document issued by the US Office of Personnel Management with regards to employment. And it's a self-identification document uh, for race and ethnicity. So how it's broken down is they ask two main questions, and then they give you a selection of ethnicities or races, which you tick a box and identify your race. So each race is also given a definition. So, you know, they'll say black, white, Asian, Hawaiian, Alaskan, or whatever. And you've got a definition of each category. Now, it's in the definition of the category that it's most important to understand what's going on. And, you know, you really need to read it, read the categories, and contrast and compare what you're reading. Okay?
Right.
So I want people to maybe come to it by themselves. But if needs must, then obviously I'm gonna say what I see,
Thanks for
and then
that,
anybody
Chris.
else can agree or disagree with me.
Well, there's a couple messages here. So they're going to have a look at the document. And there'll be plenty of time, guys, as well, because Christopher is going to stay with us after 11:30. We're going to have a musical celebration of our musical guests and then come back to the conversation. So, Christopher, powerful, powerful information there. We're talking about the impact of words on us. So much you were saying there that came up the cycle, men and women, how we are as black people. And some people say that, yeah, the system is benefiting from our so-called dysfunction. So much is happening out there.
A lot of people, who listen, we've got this lovely term now, in this age of social media, and the term's called influencer, right? But back in traditionally, when it was just simple broadcasting, we had the term program or programming. Yeah. Now it's the same. Basically, it's the same thing. You've got where we were once being programmed because we didn't have the ability to interact with what was happening with the show. Like a radio medium, you're just fed a stream of whatever it is the broadcaster wants you to listen to. And when now you're on social media, you've got what they call broadcast on demand. And you've got the ability to interact and so on and so forth. So now you've got a lot of people who, being sort of broadcasters, podcasters, things of that nature, are putting their views out there, and they're known as influencers. And now this is actually a very important dynamic that's going on, because now many of these broadcasters are also now being seen as the influencers that they've always been. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Right. So we use these words: program, influence. Yeah. What does it mean? I see it as like a hypnosis, or even to go as far as saying a magic spell, because magic is simply a science that we don't yet understand. Okay. So we're using these words. We're using words like black, white, colors, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So these things are just in us now. It's innate within us. We just carry on and we accept it and take it as read. Now, pertaining to that document that I just mentioned, SF-181, right? Most people will read it. They may not see what is really said, what is being said, but it's there. People in the know, the creators of the document, they know full well what they've done there. They know full well what they've done. So it's now for us as the people to rise up, to wake up. Yeah. And when I say wake up, I don't mean woke, because woke is something else now. Okay. For instance, we're in the political game, and there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, I'm not into politics," but actually, we all are. It's just whether we actually choose to admit it. But we all operate on politics, right? The politics of feeling, the politics of actual policy, yeah, and logic. And at the moment, and the politics of personality. So this is where the influences come in, isn't it? To where I was saying about these words,
Yes. The impact of
right?
words.
We've now find ourselves in a situation where we're using words that reinforce our conditions. They're reinforcing our I'll just put it like conditions. I'm trying not to get into the word salad of it all, right?
Yeah.
But they're reinforcing our conditions. So we just move along in this situation of being black, right? And we're trying to at the same time transmute it. So people will say, "Oh, okay, I'm proud to be black," for instance, and black is beautiful. And these are all noble things to do, but the underlying root meanings are still there. Now, the people
Hmm.
that historically, right, and I'm going to say this right now, historically, we weren't always called black,
Oh yeah, I know that. Yes. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, and also historically, the people that called us black weren't always called whites, okay? So we have to now understand, how did these terms come into being? Why did they come into being? And that's the historic significance. That's very interesting, especially as we enter the month of October, which we know as Black History Month here in the UK. In the US, it's February. They call
Yes,
Black
in
History Month.
February.
Yeah,
Christopher, one of
yeah.
our listeners, asked the question: how do you identify yourself in terms of race? That's what they're asking.
Okay, right. So